and I did it all before I was 30. And so now I'm 36 and I've written a book, which is all of me, my journey to yes. It is my autobiography and just details everything that God has brought me through. And then I also have a live recording that I did. And I'm going to share how this came about later on in what I'm going to speak with you about today. But I want to start with this. It's been in my spirit. How many know it is well with my soul? So, let me sing. When peace like a river attended my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, right here at Genesis 1 and 1 that says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And then Genesis 2 and 7 says, and the Lord formed man out of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. And man became a living soul. This is how I start off my autobiography, by accounting that scripture, because it just talks about how he created us. He knows us. You know, when you have, let's take for instance your phone. Everybody has a cell phone. And something breaks on your cell phone and you want it fixed. Sometimes you have to go to the person who made it, the manufacturer, to get it fixed. Now we have nowadays you have a lot of people that fix things and you can just take it to a cell phone repair. But with us, God is our creator. And when there is something on the inside that needs to be fixed, and he's the one that we call and that we go to. I also want to read Jeremiah 1:4-6, which says, and the word of the Lord came to me saying, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. Alas, sovereign Lord, I said, I do not know how to speak. I am too young. Now, in this scripture, of course, he was speaking to Jeremiah, but he is speaking to all of us because before we were created, we were with God. He created us. We were with him. He set us apart. He ordained us. So I want to share a little bit about my testimony. Throughout my book, I state that I had a peace when I was going through what I was going through because I knew that God created me. He was in control, and whatever is wrong, well, he created me, so he knows what's wrong, so he's going to fix it. So when I was born with a double hernia that had to be fixed, and then I had a condition with my legs that completely turned my legs inward. Now, normally, the doctors tell mothers that children will normally grow out of it. My mom was a little over anxious and she didn't want to hear that, so I had to wear a brace on my legs that naturally straightened them out. So move forward, and so about the time I was 14, and I was getting ready to go into 9th grade, 15, at West Orange High School, and I began to get sick every day, and we did not know why. I was in PE, that's what happened, and I failed the class because I couldn't keep up, I couldn't do any of the things that they were doing. I would be about to pass out, I would start vomiting. It was horrible. That went on for about a year until it got so bad that you could pretty much see my rib cage. I was down to like 80 pounds. So my mother decided to take me to the doctor. They did some blood work and, the natural tests that they do, normal tests. And the next day, the doctor called my parents and said, hey, I was looking at her blood works and it looks like her blood needs to be dialyzed. So they rushed out to the school, got me out of school. I went to Health Central Hospital, and they did every test known to man in the book on me, trying to find out what was wrong. I stayed in the hospital. I got admitted, of course, overnight. The next morning, the doctors came in and they said, you have kidney failure. Now, I'm the seventh child. It's 10 of us. I have 5 brothers, 5 sisters. No one has ever been sick. There's no kidney disease. There's no kind of heart disease, none of those kind of things, in our family history. So this was kind of a shock because I was the only child out of so many to be so sick. So long story short, no, not long story short, but I went on to get on dialysis because you have to do dialysis in order to survive when you have kidney failure. I did dialysis for 3.5 years, all through high school. I graduated from high school by God's grace, and the year after I graduated, on March 7th, 1999, we got a call in church that my kidney was ready for me, and me and my family got up, we went out to Florida Hospital, and I got my kidney transplant, which I have had for 17 years this year. God is so good, and I wish I could say that is where it ended, but it didn't. To God be the glory. 2 years later, you have to take immunosuppressant drugs, which are steroids. And the steroids got into they get into your system and it disrupted my bones. Ended up having to have a total hip replacement at 21. So the transplant was at 19, the hip replacement was at 21. 2 years after that, in 2003, I got married to my husband who's with me today. And we've been married for 13 years. And then skip ahead, in 2009, I was in Orlando, driving down Pine Hills Road, taking my stepson to school, and I felt something in my head. It just felt funny, it felt like I was going to pass out. So I pulled over into the middle lane, and I picked up my phone, and I looked at my stepson, and I said, hey, if I pass out, call 911, call your daddy, call somebody, because I didn't know what was going on. While I was talking to him, I realized, I haven't passed out. So I picked up the phone and began to dial my husband. But what I did realize was I could not move. My entire left side was completely paralyzed. So I'm sitting in the car. I call him. He calls 911. He calls my mom. Everybody shows up, Pine Hills Road, same time. They get me out to Florida Hospital. And, of course, they do the CT scan and the MRI to figure out what is going on. And the neurosurgeon walks in and he says, you've had a brain hemorrhage. And I was like, what in the world? Lord help me. I didn't panic. It was that peace. When peace, like it still had that peace. When I was going through the kidney failure, there was still that peace that passes all understanding. When you go through things sometimes in life, because we hear that scripture, the peace that passes all understanding will guard your heart and mind. Well, when you start to actually go through things and you have that peace, you are like, that's what they're talking about. It's so real, and I can't describe it, but I was laying there in that bed, I guess partially paralyzed, because I guess that's what you call it, I couldn't move, and I said, you know what, it's all good, I'm going to get up from here. The doctor said, we don't have to have surgery. Normally, the blood will just absorb back into the brain. but it had bled out on my right side, so that caused, and it was right on my motor skills. That was it, nothing else. So it just caused everything on the left side to shut down. So I was in a wheelchair for a couple of months, but I went from Florida Hospital, I went from ICU. By February 14, Valentine's Day, I was going home. I had been in the rehab facility for, about 2 weeks. And I got to the point where I could move. Oh, this is the thing he told me when I first came in. The bad news was they didn't know if you would regain. Well, first of all, most people pass away when they have a brain hemorrhage. But so the fact that I was still alive was one miracle. He didn't know if I would ever gain in use of my arms and fingers. I mean, I couldn't move nothing. It's all back, you see, I'm standing up here now today, so I thank God for that. And so I went through the therapy, I had in-home therapy, I had the hospital therapy, in-home therapy, and then outpatient therapy. And I was pretty much done with therapy by July. And I was still on the cane, but I could still walk. And so I give God all honor and glory and praise because he kept me through that part. And what I talk about in my book is how God knows every detail about us, every little thing. He created us. And so I always knew that God was in control. I had to keep telling myself, God is in control, God is in control. Don't panic. God is in control. He is your creator. He knows exactly what's wrong with you. He's going to get you through this. So in everything that we go through, we should be calling on our creator. Exactly, God. And so he is still in control. God may be taking you through something or has taken you through something. And whatever you may be going through, it could be preparing you for such a time as this. I know now, and I can look back and say, God, you took me through all of that for now, for my ministry, to prepare me for when I go out and I sing and I speak for One Blood, which is the blood bank in Central Florida, and I also speak for TransLife, the organ donor program there who helped my family. And so I go out and I speak and I also sing for them. And so he was preparing me for all of that, because God can see 1 and 2 and 3 and 5 years down. He knows where you're going to be. And so he's saying, hey, let me prepare you now for what's coming up later in life. And so a lot of times that's what he's doing. He's preparing us for such a time as this. Esther in the Bible, and I'm going to read Esther 4:12 through 14. It says, when Esther's words were reported